you. Thank you and good evening. Saidna, Bishop Gregory, since you opened and you mentioned that it's important to confront and overcome our fears. I just returned from Lebanon, and there are many fears gripping the country. And at the same time, when you go into the heart of Lebanon, Mount Lebanon, its monasteries, its churches, its villages, you see a strength and a faith there that has survived so many centuries, so many persecutions. And so when I left Beirut and the coastal areas and went to the mountain, I thought, Lebanon is going to survive. Christianity in Lebanon is going to survive. But it's going to require confronting fear. And so in Lebanon, there is a shadow government, a shadow military, a shadow economy that exists apart from the rest of Lebanon. And every time the rest of Lebanon fails, that shadow government, military, that entity grows stronger. Now, the bishops in Lebanon, the Maronite bishops and the patriarch, have increasingly been very courageous in confronting this threat, as have others. And I want to be mindful about the fact that this isn't only a conversation we're having in Washington, D.C., but at the same time, I don't want us to be afraid in naming these threats. And so, with all of that, what is the path ahead, not only for Lebanon, but for the Christians of Lebanon to survive and remain in their homeland?
Thank you, Andrew. So, Christians of Lebanon have had centuries of practice in dealing with every kind of difficulty. You had the Mamluks, you had the Ottomans, and you had the Civil War, and now we have the presence of Hezbollah. And we've been able to deal with all of them. And I think what makes the Christian community so vibrant in Lebanon is because they believe in the vision of Lebanon. For those who don't know the history of Lebanon, in 1919, at 76 years old, Patriarch Patriarch Al-Hayek traveled to Versailles with a group of Christians and Muslims and asked them to carve out of the Middle East Lebanon, with a vision of the borders of Lebanon having a sense that we would include Shiite, Sunni, Druze, and every kind of Christian. That is right after the decimation of the Ottoman Turks, including the Maronites. Why would a man do that? Why didn't he just say, we'll live in our own little walled-in enclave and we'll leave it at that, because we can't trust anybody? But the patriarch did it on purpose. That's a bold statement in the midst of the world today, to say, in the midst of every kind of hatred and self-serving people all over, we believe that a Muslim-Christian conviviality can and is in the best, can survive, and it is in the best interest of Lebanon. That's where I find such an inner strength, because it's not an enclave unto ourselves, but it's a reaching out to the neighbor as an equal, not as someone below or someone dominating, but someone who is eye to eye. So that's why I hope in Lebanon.
Thank you, Saidna. Nadine, I saw you nodding. I know you've been to Lebanon, and you deal very generally with religious freedom issues in the region and beyond the Middle East. What would you say for the Christians and other minorities of the Middle East are the greatest challenges with respect to religious freedom?
So you're asking where in the Middle East are the most?
Yeah, where in the Middle East would you say are the greatest so, for example, in the Copts of Egypt face different challenges than the Christians of Lebanon.
You know, I think that answering that question depends on how you're looking at it. I mean, most of the Christians probably you'd have to look at Egypt, and that has such a huge amount of Christians living there. But of course, you know, we're seeing the numbers just leave quickly from Iraq and continue to just go down on how many can live and thrive there. And of course, in Syria and northeast Syria, we've seen them leave. So I think Christians in the Middle East are struggling. They don't have the kind of support that they need. And the U.S. really needs to relook at how we are supporting these communities. I want to shout out USAID because, you know, in the Middle East and particularly the Nineveh Plains, there are homes for them. There's a lot of rebuilding, but the security situation is so terrible they can't live there. You know, so while it takes all the different goals of the U.S. government to hit the mark in order for us to support these communities, so I really feel like that broadly through the Middle East, Christianity is struggling, and it's hard to watch, and that's why IDC is so important, because it's really complicated. It's not a simple answer, and they're willing to do the hard work of figuring out what's the best policy for each of these countries.
Thank you, Nadine. Aram, you have been, Anka has been a pioneer in this field of human rights, protecting religious minority communities, ethnic minority communities, and advocating for these communities. And so you've seen over the past several years perhaps a trajectory developing, and Anka's many years of hard work were rewarded earlier this year, on April 24th, with the recognition of the Armenian genocide at long last and after much work. Congratulations. So what would you say is the trajectory? Do you see more successes as far as reconciling the values of the American people with the power politics, realpolitik of a great power?
The good news is the answer is yes. The bad news is it's going to take a lot of hard work. That's the bottom line. Let me say two words before I dig more into that. Let me say a couple of words. I'm here with Tufik, here with Andrew. They're among the founders, the founding fathers of In Defense of Christians. We've been with them since day one. In Armenian, we would say, Yech Baidek, you're my brothers. Ngedek, you're my friends. I don't know where IDC starts and where ANC ends. I see us as one family. That's number one. Number two, I've said this before, probably at every summit, but I'll say it again. IDC is America's answer. America's answer. America produced IDC. America's answer to a century or more of indifference to the plight of Christians and others abroad. And it was an answer that was needed, and you provided it in a very, very powerful way. And I'm going to expand on that because I think it deserves to be discussed. And all of you here who support the work of IDC, you're right to support IDC, but you're not supporting IDC enough, okay? So add a zero, be as generous as you can. Think about this. Before IDC, there was no shortage of organizations, individuals, tourists in this town, politicians in this town, advocates in this town, who used the word, who deployed the word, should. America should do this. America should do that. Maybe some other countries should do this or should not do that. It's a good word. It's a strong word. It's a moral word. It's an important word, but it's not a political word. What Tufik and Andrew and IDC added to the vocabulary is how. Here's how we're going to do it. here's the steps we're going to take to do the work of the Lord in the ways of Washington, to do the work of the Lord in the language of legislation. So that when someone comes to you, as very often people in my community and your community do, and say, how can we confront the powers of this world? They're so powerful. Well, the answer is you become a power yourself. And IDC has done that. And that deserves a round of applause from each and every one of you. They've worked really hard. The staff, every one of them is worth 5 or 10 staffers. I see Sarah here, Rich, Stephen, the rest of the team. Awesome folks. So that's my, forgive me, that was my IDC pitch, because I really feel strongly about it. It builds up in me for literally a year before each summit, and then I have to get it out. So with that being said, I think we're on the right track. I think not because of anything anyone else is doing. Presidents come and go, Congresses come and go. We love our legislative friends. We admire and respect those who serve in the White House. But ultimately, our progress is going to be the result of our sweat. So I think we are making progress. I think that the gap between what we believe and what we do as a country is narrowing. And I think that's largely the result of IDC and the coalitions that we've been able to create.
Thank you, Aram. Rita, if memory serves, you have the good fortune now of serving the communities that your own ancestors come from. And one of the challenges that you may face in the years ahead is that the and I mean specifically serving minority communities in the Middle East to maintain the Middle East's diversity. But there's going to be an emphasis in the years ahead on great power competition. And we see that there is, in America, a fatigue with the Middle East. How are you going to sustain your work in the years ahead, which is very important?
First of all, thank you all. And thank you, my esteemed panelists, for your intervention here. You know, the Middle East is a lot of trouble, but it's also a lot of hope. And we at USAID have not lost hope. We believe in what we're doing. We believe in the impact we're having on the ground. Today, I had a conversation with a group of youth from Saida talking about dialoguing with the other, learning about Christianity, and most of these were Muslim youth, and learning about differences, about coexistence. So yes, there's a lot of fatigue on the macro level. There's a lot of work on the micro level, on the individual level. And our focus right now is to really increase dialogue along with development, and to actually ensure that we're not only protecting minorities as a group, as an enclave, as Bishop said, but actually to create the environment that is tolerant of differences. And this is now where most of our activity for USAID are focusing on, not just in Lebanon, but also in Iraq, in North Africa, Morocco, Yemen. And we have religious minorities everywhere who are part of this tapestry and will continue to be and make what the Middle East is. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you for your work. Thank you.